The State Department is going to pay between $7 and $3 million, putting a price on the heads of these 4 senior ISIS leaders. Among them, the chief spokesperson for ISIS. His name is Abu Muhammad al-Adnani. They also are asking for information on the man who runs the suicide bombing operation for ISIS, as well as a Georgian national by the name Tarkan Batrashvili, and he's believed to run the prison where many foreign hostages are held.
To your seats, the arena begins. ISIS says it has 71 trained soldiers in 15 states as it claims responsibility for the shooting in Texas. They're naming more targets. The city of Baltimore wants help from the Justice Department after they announced indictments. And one has to be slightly brain impaired to believe anything connected with boxing comes with a money-back guarantee. So let's get to it. First up, journalism adjunct at Seton Hall University, Dorian Davis, and next, advisor on LGBT policy and racial justice for the Center for American Progress, Danielle Moodie-Mills. I thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Danielle, as we always do, ladies first. The United States is offering 4 ISIS leaders, or they're targeting 4 ISIS leaders, offering $20 million in rewards. What do you think about your government offering rewards to go out and get people? All they're looking for is information, but let's face it, we want to find these guys and kill them.
Yeah, I found that really interesting. I had no idea that there was a program that was operating in order to give people money for information, because I know that we don't negotiate with terrorists and we don't allow families of hostages to then use their own resources in order to get their family members back. So this to me seems like a kind of tilted way to look at how we deal with terrorists.
You got to admit, though, Dorian, it's not a bad way if you're going to get out to people there, because intelligence doesn't always work. So look, if you're going to find the information that will allow you to find the terrorists before they do something stupid and kill somebody close to you or anything else, why not?
Well, that's exactly right, Ed. You know, this is part of a program called Rewards for Justice, and it's been around for a while, and it has some pretty high-profile successes. Ramzi Youssef, one of the 1993 World Trade Center bombers, and Uday and Qusay Hussein were all caught through this program. So it seems unwise to take it off the table in the fight against ISIS.
Listen, I know some people who would tell you, and even some friends of mine in the military would tell you, that any way you can find the bad guys, you find them, you look at them, and then you kill them, which would be the base thing to go. All right, here we go. Loretta Lynch and the Justice Department. Here we go. Loretta Lynch is going to go to Baltimore. Actually, she did yesterday. She's meeting now with city officials, members of Congress, law enforcement officials, as well as the faith and community leaders. Baltimore's asked her to come in. Now, Dorian, here's something that was brought up to me by a legal friend of mine. He said, it's kind of interesting that you would ask for the Justice Department to come in after your city attorney has gone through the indictment phase, which many people feel was a bit of a rush to judgment in the first place. So do you see this as basically Baltimore looking to cover their butts, or else trying to make sure they get everything right?
Well, it's a little bit of both, isn't it? I mean, from the perspective of the mayor, Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, it makes political sense, and it also makes practical sense, because we know something went wrong in the Baltimore Police Department. The extent to which the police are in fact to blame for Freddie Gray's death is something that'll come out during the trial, but that something went wrong, I think, is beyond dispute, and therefore it's appropriate to have the Justice Department come in and review the police activities in the city.
Diane, don't you think there's going to be some people who, regardless, just because it's a government agency coming in, they're not going to trust it? There's going to be a lot of raised eyebrows here. But at the end of the day, they got to get this right the first time. They cannot mess this up, though some people feel it's already in trouble because of what they call the rush to judgment by the city attorney.
I don't think that there was a rush to judgment by the city attorney. I think that she did exactly what needed to be done. But I do agree with Dorian in the fact that they do need to have the Justice Department come in. We've seen these cases time and time again go down in a terrible way, right? And so I think that it's really important, and by a terrible way, I mean that no charges are brought. And so I think that it's really important that there be transparency and that there be parallel investigations that are happening to make sure that all the bases are covered.
60 seconds, last thing here before we take a break, and I'll stay with you, Danielle, on this one. Looks like the co-pilot of the Germanwings aircraft may have rehearsed his fatal dive the day of the crash on an earlier flight. Does this give you any pause whatsoever to think about getting on a plane again?
It absolutely gives me pause. It gives me pause because there's no recourse, no action has been taken as far as we know to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. And there were no alarms that went off in the times that he was adjusting the flight, the height of the plane. There was no adjustments that were made, no alarms that went off to signal that something was going awry. So I think that that's really problematic and we need to look into it.
So Dorian, what do you think we can do here about 30 seconds moving forward and making sure that people at least feel safer?
Well, this reminds me of the conversations that we had after 9/11 about failures of imagination, the failure of companies and governments to anticipate the kind of worst-case scenarios that can happen in aviation. I think we have to take a better look at what could go wrong in a doomsday scenario going forward. And that's something that's on the airlines.
Maybe better psychological testing, too, of the pilots themselves?
Absolutely.
That too, yep.
Yeah, I think that's going to make a lot of people feel better because, as you said, you never know there's a problem until, unfortunately, there is a problem and takes somebody's life. All right, stand by, everybody. We're going to come back right after a break. And when we do, you pay thousands to go see an event. Now you want your money back? Boxing? Okay, seats please. Back in the arena. First up, journalism adjunct at Seton Hall University, Dorian Davis, and advisor on LGBT policy and racial justice for the Center for American Progress, Danielle Moodie-Mills. All right, let's see. Dorian, I start with you first. Are you a boxing fan?
I'm not a boxing fan typically, but this was a pretty big fight.
Okay, you're now Danielle. What about you? Boxing fan, yes or no?
No, not a fan.
Oh, my God. Okay. Don't worry about it. We'll work on this because this comes down to legalese now. So, Dorian, Manny Pacquiao apparently got into the ring with an injured shoulder, didn't tell anybody about it. Then he made the excuse afterwards. Now we have a class action lawsuit, $5 million. Fans want their money back because he didn't tell the Nevada Athletic Commission about it, so he went in injured, and they're saying, you robbed us. Let's see. You're trying to get money out of boxing and get them to give you money. You do see the inherent problem with that, right?
Yeah, you know, Ed, I'm not a lawyer, but I read the complaint this morning, and it's pretty comical, actually. Class action is a generous term because there are two listed plaintiffs here, and they're both, according to LinkedIn, VIP host, whatever that is. And I think the lawsuit is kind of a fishing expedition, actually, because it actually states that they don't know who the other plaintiffs might be, so I think they're kind of looking for some other people to sue. And then in addition to that, I'm not so sure that if I were on a jury, I would be compelled by the arguments made that Pacquiao committed fraud, because that's really not provable. It's possible, but it's not really provable. So I don't see this going anywhere.
Not only that, but you want to make sure that you're giving money back to people who were stupid enough to pay that kind of money to go see a fight in the first place. I think what this comes down to, Danielle, is here you've got people saying we paid a tremendous amount of money. You said you were going to give us a certain product at a certain value. You were going to give us your best, whatever that may be. And they're saying that you cheated us. You robbed us. And I mean, isn't that something that Americans should at least be able to say? You give me the best that you've got and don't fool me?
No, when you bet, it is a 50-50 chance that you're going to win or you're going to lose. That's the point of betting. So if you're betting on him to give his best and he says that he gave his best and he lost, and I heard that the fight anyway wasn't much to watch, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. You don't then get your money back. Then what would happen with all betting, right? Like, oh, I had a really bad time at this movie. The trailer said it was going to be good, so I thought it was going to be a box office hit. It wasn't.
I've been around boxing for a lot of years. All I have to do is
it's not going anywhere.
I know boxing very well. All I want to do is tell these people, sure, go right up and try to get your money back from the boxing promoters and the people involved. Good luck. I'll see you about 150,000 years from now. Here comes a more serious story here, but again, this is something else that we're talking about a lot these days in the news. A detective with the Miami Beach Police Department suspended. Surveillance video showed him punching a handcuffed woman in the face and then kicking her. Now, the Justice Department looked at it. They said there was nothing there for charges. The Miami-Dade County State's Attorney's Office said no charges. And also, we can't see a lot of what happened before the actual video began. So, Danielle, should we rush to judgment like this, or the fact that a cop hits somebody regardless, that in itself sends you off?
Well, according to what I've seen, this happened about 2 years ago, right? So I don't think that there's a rush to judgment, but the idea that a police officer would assault a person that is handcuffed, I think that there's something wrong with that, and I think that the idea that they see that there's nothing wrong with it really just keeps giving police this idea that they're above the law. The laws don't apply to them.
Well, what about this, though? Let me
when
just
I
bring
watched
this in,
the video,
Danielle, if
I
you
was
don't
very
mind.
disturbed by it.
Let me just bring this in, because we're saying, and again, we have to look in context, but apparently the individual was handcuffed, but then was kicking at the officer and then was trying to get out. So you've got to subdue them. Shouldn't the cops be allowed some manner in which to subdue a suspect, even if they're handcuffed?
Yes, but punching them in the face, I'm pretty sure that their training teaches them something else other than that. And there were several other officers that were around as well, as can be seen on the video. So whether she needed to be restrained by other officers to to shackle her legs or what have you, there are other ways than punching her in the face. That's what he went to train. That's what he went to boot camp for.
It's a big part. We're talking about training an awful lot with cops these days. That's all part of it. So Dorian, I got about a minute left here. Is it fair to say that, look, the cop needs to be able to do what they need to do, or do you need to back off in a case like this?
Well, part of being a police officer, I think, is probably discipline. And, some of the media reports say that the model being arrested was not only kicking, but using racial slurs toward this officer who was African American. And that might or might not be true. But the fact of the matter is, as a police officer, part of the challenge is to apprehend a suspect without punching her in the face. And so I don't think there's an excuse for this if, in fact, that's how it happened. And the police ought to be used to people taping things like this and to tapes existing. So I'm a little baffled that this kind of behavior happens in full view of a crowd and in full view of a security camera.
Well, it is 2 years old. It took them 2 years to basically adjudicate and get to this point, so I think they've all learned something now. But when you've got everybody involved, the Justice Department, the county, they say no charges. He's going to, by the way, get 160 hours of a suspension. Arena's done for the day. Dorian Davis, Danielle Moodie-Mills, always a pleasure to have you both on the show. Thanks so much for being here, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, take care, everybody. Once more after the break, the man who changed the world, and to this day, some believe almost helped destroy a small part of it, with help from little green men. Next on MidPoint.